It is beautiful. The blue sky and the blue water, and that you've done something really special by being down in the water with these animals in the wild and seeing them face to face and see how they're relatively friendly. It's a remarkable experience.
Welcome to Experiences You Should Have, your how-to guide for amazing experiences. I'm your host, Gail Manasco, and today we are talking about one of my favorite experiences in the world. If I could go and travel one place in the world right now, this is where it would be, which is Tiger Beach. Now, when I say Tiger Beach, you might be imagining a beach with tigers on it. But actually, this is a place 20 miles west of Grand Bahama Island, east of the east coast of Florida. And there is no beach there. You cannot see land there. It is this beautiful place in the ocean where you can swim with tiger sharks and also a variety of other sharks, such as lemon sharks, blacktip, maybe a hammerhead. And I got to go on a trip to Tiger Beach 10 years ago. And I swear it is probably one of my favorite weeks ever, the time that I spent at Tiger Beach. Every single day was thrilling, exciting. You could feel your blood pumping, and it was amazing. And when I went on the trip, I was 25 years old. I didn't know anybody. I went by myself, and then I joined a group of divers, and we instantly made friends and had the time of our life that week. And I wanted to make sure that you, my listeners, were hearing a fresh experience. So I am interviewing a Florida dive enthusiast and underwater photographer, Tom Puff, on going to Tiger Beach. And he went in December, and his photos from his experience are extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. So those will be on experiencesyousshouldhave.com. So I'm not going to make you wait any longer. Let's get to the interview. Thank you, Tom. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here with you, Gail.
I am so excited for this episode. Like, you don't even know. This is my favorite dive spot in the world. This is my favorite.
That's incredible. It is for many.
What about you? You've done a lot of dives. How does Tiger Beach compare to where
it ranks right up there with, probably the top, 5 or 6 places I've ever been, if not the top one. I mean, if you like diving with sharks.
Yeah.
I'm an underwater photographer, and so I like it all. Variety is kind of like the key for me.
Sure.
But frankly, the first time I dived with sharks was with Stewart Cove a few years ago. And then they've got some local shark diving operations here out of West Palm Beach. But Tiger Beach is in a class by its own because you're in shallow water. It's warm. The currents are not strong. And, the tigers are just there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's just like a kiddie pool, but with sharks.
And the amazing thing is the operators there, they don't require, high levels of certification because they understand that these creatures, as terrifying as they seem to be, are actually quite docile. They're not like real tigers, and lions that will hunt you on land. When you get in the water and you see them face to face, you realize that they're actually quite docile creatures.
Agreed. Now, it's been 10 years since I've been to Tiger Beach, and I'm curious if it's changed from when I went. So I went back in 2009. I spent a week out there, and And when I was there, we saw many lemons. I want to say maybe about 50 lemons. I saw a black tip, and then all the tigers that I saw were all female. And on the first day, we had like one tiger, and then it built up to two tigers. And by the end of the week, we had about five tigers, tiger sharks in the water with us. Oh, how does that compare to your experience when you went? And when did you go?
I went December of last year,
Mm-hmm.
and I went with a dive master. Her name is Lee Cobb. That's
Mm-hmm.
Leighcobd,
Mm-hmm.
and she has her website named Shark Diver Travels, or at Blonde Shark Diver.
Mm-hmm.
She's a British lady, uh, small girl, probably about 5'4", and but she's just great with these animals. She absolutely loves them. And we went out on a 2 day, not a whole week. We went out on a 2 day trip, which was just about perfect for me.
Yeah.
Um, it was $820. We left in the morning, early in the morning. Actually, we arrived over at West Palm Beach and left out of Riviera Beach.
Yes.
And
I
yeah,
love Riviera Beach. I love
yeah,
it so much.
yes, I know you've been here,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's perfect for me because I live here. As a retired naval officer, and I love to dive, and so this is just almost the perfect spot in the world, for living in, the United States or Florida, and to have all these, the variety of diving out here.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, we headed out from West Palm Beach, and we arrived. It was a little choppy that day, so it took us longer to get there than normal. Um, Small boat. We had about a total of 8 people, and we went into Grand Bahama Banks, checked in with customs, which took about an hour or so, and then we headed right out to Tiger Beach.
How
Now,
long did it take you to get from Riviera Beach to Grand Bahama? How long was that boat ride?
almost 3 hours,
Okay.
about 3 hours. If the weather was calm, it would have been maybe 2 hours, I'd say.
Okay.
2 hours, 15 minutes.
And did you leave in the morning, evening?
Oh, we arrived there at the docks, at dark, early in the
Yeah.
morning, like 5:30. Got everything loaded up. As soon as the sun came up, we were heading out because
Got it.
we had planned to, get checked in over at the customs, and then we go right out to Tiger Beach the same day and do our first 2 dives.
Great.
And
That's
then,
great.
yep. And then after those 2 dives, we went back to the resort, a place called Blue Marlin Cove, where we spent the evening and, had dinner and drinks and talked about the day. And then the next morning, at sunrise, they filled up the tanks for you, and you're back out there at Tiger Beach. You do 2 more dives, and then you head for home right from Tiger Beach. So for me,
Wow.
it was perfect. It was a perfect 2 day excursion. You did 4 dives, and it was enough to get really excited and not get burned out. We
Yeah.
had Gail. We had 7 tigers both days.
What?
Seven
What? Are
tigers.
you kidding me?
7 tigers.
No.
A
7?
large 7 tigers. It was incredible. I mean, I was, frankly, I was terrified because I had, never been in the water with such big animals like this. And even
Oh,
though I've
that
got
is so cool. That
thousands
is
of
so
dives,
cool.
but what scared me the most was the fact that Lee said, "Well, these tigers are going to come up to you, and when they come up, just keep them at arm's length and put your hand on their head and push them away." And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, no, this isn't going to happen. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be pushing 12, 14-foot tiger sharks away with my hands. I was terrified.
I had to push a tiger shark away with a camera housing, but I didn't
Uh-huh.
put my hand on him.
Well, that
But
was what she said, is to use the camera to push it away so you don't have to touch it. But
yeah.
she when we got into the water, her her biggest piece of advice was to keep your eye on them at all times because they are
Yes.
apex predators. Yeah,
Correct.
and they
Correct.
know when you're looking at them and they know when you're not looking at them. How they
Yes,
do
they
that is
do.
uncanny. How they can see these two little human eyes looking through a mask, but they know it. They sense it. And if you're
We
not, go ahead.
Oh, we would work together as a team, and so if someone sitting across from me would see one coming from behind me, they would let me know, like
Hmm.
tiger behind you.
Hmm.
Did you see that teamwork in action when you went?
Oh, definitely. I went with two experienced divers, my buddies Debbie Wallace and Mike Kaluza, and
Uh-huh.
they were my tag team. And in
Yeah.
fact, it was Mike, who has been out there many times, is the one that convinced me to go. And we kind of stayed facing each other, and we watched out for each other's backs, and of course, we pointed them out constantly because when you have seven tigers on the water, it's hard to keep your eye on all of them at the same time.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You only got 2 eyes and there's 7 of them.
Yes.
7! I am so jealous. You don't even know how jealous I am right now. This
Did
is
you go out? Who did you go out with? Did you say
So I went out, on the Dolphin Dream. I went out
the
on a
Dolphin Dream?
liveaboard, so
Hmm.
we were sleeping on the boat, eating on the boat, and we were in the water, I mean, as much as we wanted,
Hmm.
9, 12 hours a day. Like, we were in the water with them, um, and actually my first night dive was at Tiger Beach.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
I know! It was really exciting. I was very thrilled to dive with tigers at night.
And when did you start to become comfortable being down there with them?
Um, Maybe it was more like, I mean, I was just excited. I've always been a shark enthusiast, for a
Hmm.
very, very long time, and I dove with sharks before Tiger Beach.
Hmm.
But I think on the first day, I was, like, a little jittery,
Hmm.
and then on the second day, it now don't do as I did, but they let me get in the water by myself with them,
Okay. Wow.
and that's when a tiger, like, came straight for me and would just, like, brush the side of my face, and I'm like, "Wow." I felt like they really got in close, but then when I saw that they weren't after me as food,
Hmm.
I was really able to relax underwater
Hmm.
and chill out. Now, what about you? How were your emotions and feeling when you were under there with 7 tigers?
Well, I was a lot more comfortable when I was actually in the water than when I was
Mhm.
anticipating going into the water. You know, for some reason, after we had done the first day, I was nervous about the next day. I mean, I hardly slept. But once I got into the water, you just become hyper aware of where they all are. You know,
Right.
seven tigers, a big hammerhead, um,
The
and
hammerhead,
there's
that we didn't have a hammerhead. Was that a giant hammerhead in the water with you?
it was a big one. It was a big, and they were all females there too. So I suppose that's the place where they go to give birth.
Yeah,
So
possibly.
you never see the male tigers there, so it's always females.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I guess they're a little more docile, and they're pretty well fed, and
Right.
they don't see you as food. They're curious. They seem to actually like the interaction with people. Um, Jim Abernethy, he pets them quite a bit. He
I
puts hands
know.
on them, and
Mhm.
they like the attention. So I came to the conclusion that they're more like dogs. That they're sentient beings, um, and they're more like dogs that just they kind of enjoy the interaction. They don't move fast because they're always conserving energy because they generally don't know when they're going to be fed next.
Mhm.
In nature, and they just move slowly. They're curious, so they'll come up to you. And I was told they don't have hands, so they use their mouths to just explore. We were in the water, and of course, our dive master told us not to take our eyes off of the sharks. When she got in the water, the first thing she did was start looking at her cage, her little box with the food in it. And a big tiger came from up top and put her whole BCD, the back of her BCD, in her mouth. And of course, I'm yelling through my regulator, but she must have felt, the tiger on it. She turned around, a little bit startled because she had not been paying attention. And she just pushed the tiger away, and it just swam away. So, Yeah, once you get in the water with them, your whole attitude changes. So that's how I felt.
Mhm.
Once I was in the water, it was more excitement and keeping your eye on them. And when they'd come up to you, you could take pictures, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah. And just speaking to like the puppy dog kind of piece of the shark, while it may seem like a truly safe experience, you do have to know these are tiger sharks. They are to be treated with respect, um, and to try to dive as safe as possible. Now, what were some of the precautions that you and your group took while at Tiger Beach?
Well, we were briefed extensively on how to act and how to react. Um,
Hmm.
they told us to stay basically up current, so that when the smell of the bait started going out, we wouldn't be in the bait scent. So we stayed out of the
Hmm.
bait scent. They set us up on each side of the box and just told us to face each other and make sure that you keep your eyes on them at all times. And anytime you saw one coming in new, point that out to the diver next to you, or to anybody else, so that everybody was aware of how many sharks were in the vicinity at the same time. And then uh, what Lee would do is periodically she would turn around to everybody and put a show of hands to see, to show how many tigers that she had presently seen in the water. So we all knew, how many tigers were there at any one time. So that was a
Hmm.
little easier to keep count of them.
Right.
The other
Right.
thing she said was to never let them get closer than an arm's reach, because, if an accident's going to happen, if they're closer within an arm's reach and they accidentally open their mouth or something like that, you know, all bets are off. So when they get close to you, just, stay calm, put your camera out in front of you, and then, push on the top of their head with your camera and just gently guide them away. Don't hit them, of course, or use force or anything, but just, use kind of a stiff arm and just keep them that far away from you.
Hmm. Now, something that we were briefed on was to not really be swimming on top of the water. We didn't want to be seen as food. So to get to the boat, we would swim along the bottom and then come up to the ladder. Is that still the case?
Oh yeah, that's definitely. They told us to stay in the water, and then when you came up, when you got to the rope, or basically underwater, under the boat, look around you, and then ascend quickly and get out of the water as soon as possible. One
Hmm.
thing that may have changed since you were there is the fact that they try to keep the lemons at the surface now, because the lemons are a nuisance.
Oh,
Yeah, you're there to see the tigers, and
right.
I sent you a picture showing the lemons. So they
Right.
start chumming right on the surface, and the lemons come in right away. And so there's 8 or 10 lemons that are floating around on the surface that you have to jump through. Um, and they're very docile sharks too. They don't see you as food or anything like that.
Right.
So they're
Right.
all at the top, and they want you to get into the water. And it's only about 25 feet deep, but it's very clear. And you get in the water and get down to the bottom as soon as possible. And you also have to stay relatively heavy, a lot heavier, a lot more weight than you would normally use when you're doing regular drift driving or just diving, because they want
Hmm.
you pretty much anchored to the bottom. That's really important.
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
done several shark dives where I thought I was heavy enough, and halfway through the tank, you start to become a little bit lighter, or the current is a little bit stronger, and you're struggling to stay down. So when a shark sees that you're struggling, they might, get the wrong idea about you. So you definitely want to be really heavy.
Right. Correct. Correct. Yeah, I remember we just spent seriously a week hanging out on the sand watching these magnificent creatures.
Were you
Um,
just in the sand, or was there any reef structure around you?
we were in the sand for the most part, and then there was a very, very small reef structure where I saw like a queen triggerfish one day and then some other fish. But for the most part, we were in the sand.
Did you
Um,
move around from day to day pretty much, or did you stay pretty much in the same area?
We were mostly in the same area, maybe except for one day when we were in a little bit of the reef structure.
Hmm.
Um, So yeah, we had our bait boxes out, bringing them in, and one tiger ran off with a bait box one night.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. So we went looking for the box. At night, me and when the dive masters went looking, um, which I just felt like that was just thrilling to be out there at night, not knowing if we'll see a tiger or lemons and we end up seeing lots of lemons and tigers, which was I don't know, very exciting, you know.
Well, you are a brave soul to do that. At night. So
I know, I like sharks.
yeah.
I love them. I love them. And just the tiger sharks, I love the breadth of their mouths.
Hmm.
Like it's not like a thin and point,
Hmm.
they're not like a great white.
Hmm.
It's just this beautiful, like girthy tiger, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about them too. Is they have this broad, flat nose rather than the pointy nose, and it's a big
Yes.
mouth. And they're just beautiful sharks with the markings, the tiger-like stripes on the side.
Yes, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're absolutely gorgeous.
And one diver that I was with, or after I left, he had gone out and did a shark dive, with the tigers. I said, "Well, what do you think?" And he said, "Well, each one moves like a rock star. They know that they're king or queen of the ocean, and they don't seem to be afraid of anything.
Right.
Um, but they're really docile animals once you get into the water, and they don't see
Mhm.
you as food.
No. No. For the most part, I did not feel threatened. I
Yeah.
only had one kind of weird incident, and it was on the very last day of the very last dive, and they open up the bait box,
Hmm.
and I was, like, a few feet away from it.
Okay.
And then I started to see the quicker movements, and then a tiger came and just, like, head-butted me out of the way, and then
Wow.
I pushed her off with my camera housing,
Hmm.
and then she started to circle me a few times,
Hmm.
um, but then, a free diver, we had free divers, we had 2 free divers with us. He grabbed a fish and swam down, kinda waving the fish in the air, and then she came over to him, ate the fish, he petted her, and then we were we were kosher, you know?
That's
Um
incredible. A free diver.
Yeah,
So it
I
just shows
know, I
it,
know.
it just shows you how comfortable experienced divers become around these big animals.
Right,
And
right,
then I think the danger, of course, is becoming too comfortable around. That's when you become complacent, which
mhm,
you were on the last dive of the last day, and you're
correct.
completely comfortable around them, and that's when accidents happen. I was a Navy pilot. Spent
Mhm,
26 years in the Navy and flew helicopters, and that was the biggest danger uh, that they constantly warned us about, is becoming complacent. Once you become
mhm,
comfortable with the aircraft, you start taking chances, and you think that you can do everything, and you stop, being careful. And
yes.
that's probably the biggest piece of advice that you would want to give somebody is, you know, you can become comfortable, but don't ever become complacent, because these are apex predators and you are in their environment. And even if they don't intentionally mean to hurt you, accidents can happen. Every, yeah,
Correct.
every shark master that I know that's been in the water for a long time, the two that I you know think of particularly, have had a couple of stitches, from just
Mhm,
accidental, bitings and things like that. So,
mhm, mhm.
it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, no.
Will Smith, the actor, he has a YouTube video of him going out to Tiger Beach and jumping in, and they filmed the whole thing. It's really interesting. If you have a chance, or if you haven't seen it, it's fun to watch.
I'll check it out. I will check that out. Cool. Yeah, I'll include that in the show notes on experiencesyoushouldhave.com. Well, let's talk a little bit about the logistics of making this happen. So, as far as certifications to go, what type of certifications do you need to go to dive Tiger Beach?
Well, I asked the operators about that, expecting that they would want, advanced certification, nitrox, things like that, but they don't seem to really be too concerned about, the levels of certification. At the minimum, you want an open water certification, and some will, even allow just a regular scuba diving certification because they've become relatively comfortable with diving with these animals, and the dive itself is not difficult at all. I mean, you're in a very warm, clear environment, and you're only in 25 to 30 feet of water. And so,
Right.
how hard is it to just jump in the water, have 100-foot visibility, drop down to the sand, and sit there and do nothing?
Yeah. Yes.
So,
Yes.
strangely enough, they don't seem to want to have high levels of certification. But of course, you need to be comfortable in the water, and uh, you know, need to be able to follow directions as well. So,
And just a side note, you only have to be 10 years old to get your open water scuba certification.
isn't that amazing? And
I
uh,
know.
Jim Abernathy has taken out divers that young.
Yes, my friend Sarah did this dive when she was like 11 or something. Now she's in her 20s and we've dove like Galapagos and that sort of stuff together. But
Hmm.
yeah,
What did
it's
she say about the experience?
she loved it then. And she went with her dad who is a very experienced diver and I think it just really opened up the world for her then, you know.
Hmm.
And this was this trip was my first liveaboard trip.
Hmm.
Which is expensive. If in you mentioned that your trip was around $820?
That's correct, and that was just out one
820?
day. You hit Tiger Beach the same day. You spent one night. You went out. You hit Tiger Beach again, and then you're back. But
That's awesome. I mean, that is great. I mean, for that experience that you could do that in 2 days, I mean,
that's fine.
that's a big experience, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Um, and then I think I spent about $3,000 when I went, but I was there for a full week, and I left out of Riviera Beach as well as you, which is outside of West Palm.
Hmm.
And for people flying in, you can fly into PBI,
Hmm.
which is that's the airport code, or you can fly into Fort Lauderdale, which is that about an hour away?
45 minutes
Okay, yeah, so it's
in
a
good
bigger
travel.
airport. Yeah, um, but but yes, the cost was much more when I went, and we were there all week, which gave us more chances for photography and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
But I like the idea of a 2-day trip. I mean, uh, that just sounds like just fun. Like, get out there, have this amazing experience, and come back.
Yeah, and
Um,
for a local person, it's ideal. You can go on out there, and it's almost like just a local dive. You go out, you
yeah.
come back the next day, and you're not gone for any real length of time. Uh,
Now, how do you tip on that on the 820? Do you tip 20% or 15% or 10% of your total cost?
it's funny. When I asked Lee what the tip should be, she says, "Tom, I'm not really comfortable with saying that, so just tip whatever you want." So there are no hard and fast rules. If you go out for an $80 dive, you might leave a $20 tip for a regular two tank dive. Of course, this is going to be a little bit more, and
Right.
you can leave anywhere from 10 to 20% tip. But nobody asks any questions or shames you into anything. So it's
Mhm.
basically, it's up to you.
Right. Now, for your 820, did that include your hotel stay?
No, the hotel stay was separate, and it was about $80, I think.
Okay.
And then we paid also, for the meal, which I might have, had a steak or some nice. Oh, I think I had some wahoo, really great eating
Ooh.
fish, and I must have paid $25 with the tip. And then you
Okay.
had a couple of beers, and I mean, it was just a very nice, relaxed evening. And
Sure.
she buddies you up, so you're sharing a room with somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
so you shared with your dive buddy, and so you know you save money that way. And so she tries to make it very cost effective. If you go out with Jim Abernathy, you can do a and do a liveaboard. You can do a 2 day, 3 night trip for about a little over $1,600, or you can do the 6 day, 7 night trip and spend a little over $3,000.
Right.
Or
Right.
there's a 9 day, 10 night best of the Bahamas trip for about 4,000. So
Oh.
he has lots of different options on his scubaadventures.com site. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand that a local operator called Calypso is going to start doing them. So, it's like everything, once something becomes, successful and gains notoriety, before you know it, you see several other operators out there. And the funny thing is, the local operators coming out of, Bahama, Grand Bahama, they would love to put restrictions on people coming from the mainland and charge them more money. And so, like out on the water with these operators, it's, there's a little bit of, there's competition. I won't use the word
Mm-hmm.
piracy, but they can get pretty cutthroat.
Right.
So,
Right.
but everybody for the most part plays pretty nice out there. And, it's a big area. So everybody sort of works together and they spread out. And the only problem is when you have three operators there in the general area at the right time, you might have a hard time finding enough tigers to go around.
Mm-hmm.
One operator might gain all the tigers, and then you might not have any. So you have to figure out how you're going to timeshare with the tigers.
Now, as far as the gear that you brought, what type of wetsuit? I mean, the water's warm, but did you have any skin showing? What mill were you wearing?
Well, that's a good question. Generally speaking, they want you not to wear bright colors, but contrary to the uh, general wisdom, I mean, Lee Cobb wears bright pink scuba pro fins. They're bright
Mhm.
pink fins. But generally the operators, they want you to wear a hood and dark clothes and gloves, just so you don't have a lot of white colors showing, so that a shark could mistake it, for food. Because
Mhm.
and that may be an urban legend, I don't know, but that's generally the direction that they give to divers. So the water's warm. You could probably wear a skin. I always wear generally a 3 mil wetsuit when I dive, just for protection, um, gloves, and then a hood.
Uh-huh. Now, if someone doesn't have that gear, I've always gone to Pura Vida Divers in Rivera Beach, but do you know if the boats will rent that gear to the divers?
I believe they will. With Lee, everybody expected you to have your own equipment, and we all did. And she sends out, a list of directions telling you what to wear and what not to wear, and
Mhm.
what you should expect. So people are pretty well briefed in advance what they're going to need before they go there. So um, that's generally how it is. I don't think you have too many people showing up that haven't been, thoroughly briefed. And it
Mhm.
wouldn't be
Mhm.
wise for somebody to show up from a different state or out of town or something like that without, gear, without having, fully researched the fact that they're going to be diving with tiger sharks out of, Bahamas,
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
As far as time to go, you went in the winter, I went in the fall. Do you know the preferred months, for someone to dive Tiger Beach?
Generally speaking, as I understand it, they're more in the wintertime,
Mhm.
and the winter and spring, because you want to go out there when the weather is good. And of course, in the wintertime, there's a greater likelihood of hammerheads, which is the
Yeah.
case, um, because the hammerheads like the cooler water and they don't like the warm water. So when it cools down a little bit, the hammerheads will come down here into the area to hunt for their favorite food, stingrays. And so that broad hammer on their head is is very sensitive, and they can actually sense a stingray that's buried in the sand, and so they love to eat them. So that's what draws the hammerheads, and it's generally speaking the same for the tigers as well. They seem to come more in the wintertime
Uh-huh.
than in the summer.
Yeah. Okay, that's great to know. Especially as I would love to play another trip back out there and for our listeners. And then what would you say for our camera enthusiasts out there? Any tips for capturing the tigers and lemons and potential hammerheads
Sure.
underwater?
Wide angle is good, and I happen to shoot with an Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II Nauticam housing, and one of the premier shark divers, Tanya Haupermans. She has my same camera, and the only lens she uses is an 8 millimeter fisheye lens. So,
Mm,
particularly for Tiger Beach, for shooting tigers, I would go with the fisheye lens. Although, there were people on the boat that day with nothing but GoPro. So, you bring what you have.
right.
Um, but the rest of us that were on that particular trip had, you know, cameras with Nauticam houses and housings and wide angles. So that's what I would, that's what I was told to bring. And as a matter of fact, all my tiger shark or all my shark pictures are done with the fisheye lens because you can get closer and you get that wide angle shot, and of course you can crop a little bit. But at tiger sharks, when they come in relatively close, they're big, and so it's sometimes kind of hard to get the whole shark in the picture. But
Hmm.
I've seen and friends of mine who have a Sony, 100 f100 or Sony 100 small camera,
Hmm.
and they have generally a wet lens that brings it into a wide angle. So um, the best out there say use fisheye lenses for doing tiger sharks because they're up close, and when they backed away, you can get a broader field of view. The water's so clear, why wouldn't you?
Hmm. Do you find you need a red filter or anything like that?
No, absolutely not, because the water is that clear, and if you have a regular camera, you're going to be using your strobes, and of course, I would always recommend strobes for you know shooting the sharks, and at 25 feet, there really isn't a need to use red filters. I would imagine that like on a GoPro, a red filter at 25 feet would you know, almost give a pink cast to the
Right.
water.
Right.
And
Yes.
nowadays with the editing software like Lightroom and everything, it's gotten so good just with a couple of little techniques. You can completely correct for any color deficiencies that you might have.
Mhm, mhm. Now, what tips do you have for our listeners, who might feel uneasy, around tiger sharks, but they wanna do this trip? How should they mentally prepare?
Well, that's a good question because, despite the fact that I've done a lot of dives there, I was, probably more uneasy about it than most people for whatever reason. Um, so uh, the only thing I can say is that you have to understand that tiger sharks are not like predators. I mean, most of us come from the Jaws generation, and a lot
Right.
of people think that if you see a shark underwater, it's automatically just programmed. It's going to come up and bite you,
Mhm.
and that's not the case. So once you get into the water with these animals and you understand, especially the tigers, that they're actually their their personalities are a lot different from like land animals like tigers, real tigers and lions, or wolves that hunt in packs and they will actually stalk you. Tiger sharks don't do that. You're not their food, first of all, so they don't view you as food. and secondly, their personalities are so different. So, I would just say go for it, get in the water, and then once you put your eyes on them and see them, and you almost immediately understand that their personalities are different.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, how big were the tiger sharks there when you went?
There was not one when I was there that was probably under 12 feet. So they were all
Yeah.
at least 12 to 15 feet. These are big
Yeah.
animals.
Uh-huh.
That's what makes it so
Yeah.
thrilling.
Yes, absolutely. And 7 of them. Man, I only had 5. Okay, but I thought 5 was pretty great.
Even seeing one is a big thrill. If you've never done one and you're in the
Right.
water and you have one shark big like that swimming around, uh, it's thrilling. And
Mhm.
I'll say this, that after a shark dive, a tiger shark dive, you're going to be more thrilled that you did that probably than just about any other dive that you will have an opportunity to do
Mhm.
because the
Mhm.
adrenaline's there, and the excitement factor, and it's sexy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it seriously was it's been my most thrilling dives. We're at Tiger Beach.
Hmm.
It's exhilarating. It feels wild. You're there, and it's not a this isn't a tourist trap. This is not going to be advertised to just families vacationing in the Bahamas. Uh, this is a real deal. You are out there with these big animals,
You're
and
out there in the wild nature.
yeah, and I didn't see land when I was there. Maybe I wasn't looking hard enough. I mean, because you're about 20 miles from Grand Bahama. Could you see land
Absolutely
from Tiger
not.
Beach?
I mean,
Yeah.
Tiger Beach is off the west end of Grand Bahama Bank, and it is completely out of land sight. So you're out in the big blue there. And what's
Yeah.
amazing is that you're so far out away from land or anything, but it's only it's a bank, and so it's only 25 feet deep. The water's
Yeah.
clear, it's unpolluted, um, and I mean you are in their nature. That's what makes it so thrilling. I mean, I think it would be, I've never been on a safari, African safari, but it's the feeling is at least the same, probably more, because you're out there in the wild.
Yeah, you're not
and
in a
it,
vehicle.
and it is beautiful, the blue sky and the blue water and the clear water, and if you get a day when
Mhm.
it's not choppy, I mean, it's just a magnificent experience. Once you climb
Mhm.
out of the water, you know that you've done something really special by being down in the water with these animals in the wild and seeing them face to face, and see how they're relatively friendly. I mean, they're not aggressive, and they swim around. They're gentle creatures, and it's a remarkable experience.
Well said, Tom. Well said. Well, we are going to be showcasing your photos on experiences at youshouldhave.com, as well as on our social media channels. Um, and so I love your photography. I absolutely love your photography. And and I actually learned about you last year when we did a Blue Heron Bridge episode. You came recommended for your photography. So
Oh, Pura Vida folks,
yes,
they're
yes,
great,
Pura
aren't
Vida.
they? Yeah,
They're
they're all great.
wonderful.
Yeah,
They are wonderful.
Shana and
So
Dean and their whole staff, they're just great people. Wonderful dive
ab-
operation.
absolutely, absolutely. So listeners out there, please go to the site, check out these photos. They are magnificent. Um, and then hopefully some of you out there, maybe you're in quarantine right now, maybe you're not, but you might have a little extra time on your hands, so you can go work on that open water scuba certification and start planning this trip.
Hmm. And if you make the plunge to go, just know that you're going to be well taken care of, and go and enjoy yourself. It's a great opportunity to do. If you only do it once in a lifetime, it's a once in a lifetime experience. And once you've done one, you're going to want to do it again and again.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, I will let you know when I'm back in West Palm, and let's plan a Tiger Beach trip.
Absolutely. Well, we'll do that, and we'll do a Blue Heron Bridge and even a Blackwater again.
Yes. Yes. You are speaking my language.
Yeah, that's cool. See, you should be living down here in Florida. I don't know what you're doing up there. Oh, that's right.
I know. I know. And I lived in Florida. I did, and I love Florida diving. I'm out here in Oregon, but we do make it to Florida at least once a year. So I will be back.
Sure. And then when you do, it makes it just that much more special.
It is very special, and I just savor every moment when I'm back there. Um, so I will see you in Florida. How about that?
Okay. That's sounds like a plan. It's great
All
talking to
right.
you, Gail, and hopefully we'll get to do some diving here this next year.
All right. We'll just wait for some more travel restrictions to be lifted, and then we'll see you soon.
What could be safer than being in the water and the salt, you know?
Well, true. True. Well, thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. It was an honor, Gail. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to Experiences You Should Have. We try to highlight really unique and fun experiences around the world. You know, many of them we like to highlight the accessibility, and diving is something that I like to talk about as far as accessibility because there is adaptive diving programs out there, but not all boats are equipped for wheelchair users, but maybe if you've got limited mobility and if people can help you in the water, it is a way to experience a new world. So I just want to take a note on that. Also, if you are a diver, we've got lots of diving episodes on experiences that you should have. Please go through and look. Also, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. And please subscribe to the podcast. And if you are listening to the podcast on an Apple device, then please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It would be greatly appreciated for that 5-star review. And again, just thank you guys for coming and listening to the show. Please look for the show notes on experiencesyoushouldhave.com. We'll have Tom's photos there and a nice write-up of the interview. And please follow us on Instagram, Experiences Podcast. We're also on Twitter, Facebook. We're on the things. Find us there. And if you have a really cool experience that you'd like to share, send us a note. Come be on the show. We are always looking for fun and unique experiences around the world. So I hope everyone is staying safe out there, and until our next adventure.